I got that on film. Okay, we solicited questions for this Q&A via social media, asking people what they were interested in as it relates to couples hiking. So we've got about 8 questions here to go through. Stephanie couldn't join me for the questions today. She just had surgery, can't really talk. We did have a chance to go through the questions and discuss them, so hopefully I can represent Stephanie well. Here we go. Number 1, this comes from Andrew Marshall Images. Hey, Andrew. On Instagram. He says, what happens when you are both equally convinced that you are correct about opposite navigational decisions? This doesn't happen often with us. And my experience in talking to most couples is that it does not happen often. And the reason is that one person of the couple tends to be a natural navigator and the other person tends to stay in the background and trust the other person. This is very common even when you're not hiking as a couple, when you're hiking in friends or with a group of people. So for Stephanie and I, it's not a huge deal. What is an interesting situation is when the terrain gets hard, especially if we're off trail, when the terrain gets hard, we might look at each other and say, is this the right way? And especially if it's harder than what we were expecting. So that does come up often, and it's always worth looking at the map and double checking to make sure you are indeed going the right way. Number 2, this comes from Carlos via YouTube. How do you cope with inclement weather and expectations of things that cannot be controlled? My partner is new to backpacking, so weather can be discouraging for her, especially because I am a magnet for bad weather, it seems, but I'm used to it at this point. How do you cope with inclement weather? Plan your trips in venues and with weather forecasts that offer good weather patterns. And that will obviously provide some buffer that you're going to have a good time out there without having to deal with inclement weather. Now, everybody deals with inclement weather differently, and you have to be sensitive to this when you're backpacking as a couple. So if you are the more experienced half of your couple, make sure you are paying attention to your partner's needs and their responses as the weather gets bad, and help them and coach them to help make them more comfortable. So a lot of times when you're hiking with a partner, one person is more experienced than the other, and the other is somewhat intimidated by that, and it helps to set a good example and put a rain jacket on when it's time to get a rain jacket on, and encourage your partner to do the same. But never, I would say never encourage your partner to respond to inclement weather in a way that you wouldn't yourself do it. I think it's really important for you both to be on common ground and to be doing the same things together. Number 3 from Brad Rogers on Instagram. Do you find yourself getting out together more now that Chase is away at college? Interestingly, Chase still lives with us, but he's at college. Yes, he goes to the University of Wyoming. We live in Laramie. But Steffi and I, yes, we definitely get out more, because mainly we don't have to run him to school in the morning and take him to soccer practice and do all these things you do in high school that absolutely exhaust you as a parent. So if you're a parent of a high schooler, it gets better, a lot better. And that frees up a lot of time for you as parents, and you can go hiking as much as you want. So the answer is yes, absolutely. The downside of this is, because Chase lives with us and is kind of up in our business all the time, he finds out we've gone hiking, and there's that to deal with while we've left him home. Number 4, this comes from Hoagie Time 1 via YouTube. When I think back on all the times I took girlfriends camping when I was in my 20s, I can't help but feel remorse for being such a blowhard expert that mansplained everything and had to show off my cool gear. My way was the best way, and we had to hike big miles, etc. I constantly see young men who have no self-awareness and are blind to the wants and needs of their partner, like they are in IKEA, not in the woods. How do you get people to weigh their own wants and expectations to their partners? 3 things here. First, good for you for recognizing this and wanting to take a different direction. Number 2, you constantly see young men who have no self-awareness hiking with a partner. So do we. And we see it on both sides. It's usually the lack of self-awareness is the person who has the greater degree of experience. And that intimidates the partner who has lesser experience. It doesn't matter if it's a guy or a girl on either end of that. But being aware of that is really important. You are not there as a couple to participate individually in this collective adventure so much as you are in sharing that adventure together. So make sure that the things you want to share on that adventure are the things you're going to want to remember. And being a blowhard and being a know-it-all and being right every time, that's not the thing you're going to want to remember. The third thing is, how do you weigh your own wants and expectations with that of your partner? Communicate, and then communicate. And do it before the trip, during the trip, and after a trip. Okay, so make sure you are talking about the entire experience from start to finish, so that you can take what you learned from this trip and apply it to the next one. I hope there's a next one for you. Number 5, this one comes from Roman via Instagram. What is the best way to cope with physical and mental differences during the hike? How to keep your partner's morale high, especially during hard stretches. One of you is going to have a limit at any given time that the other person will be able to exceed. That may be different for each of you depending on the day, the situation, and the challenge that is at hand. For one of you might be more fit and better able to accomplish a hill climb. The other person may have more backpacking experience and be more comfortable when the weather starts to turn south. So coping with those differences requires 2 things. 1, it requires that you pay attention to what your partner is going through and the challenges they're facing. Be sensitive and aware of their condition at all times. Number 2, as a partner in a couple, be sure you communicate your needs and desires. There's no shame in that at all. And if you can decide as a couple that there's no shame going into this and you want to maximize your enjoyment of this trip together, communicate and be sensitive to the other person. Number 6, from Nalona via YouTube. Do you pack extra luxury items when you go backpacking together? Oh yeah. If you saw the video, now that was only a 24-hour trip, but if you saw the video, we packed some fresh food like bread. That's not something I would normally take on a backpacking trip, but oh man, it upped my morale like you wouldn't believe. I love bread. The second thing we brought that are considered luxury items for most people, camp chairs. This allows us to, I mean, we're not spring chickens anymore. Stephanie and I are into our 40s, well into our 40s, and being able to rest our backs and sit down on a real chair and not the hard ground after hiking all day is pretty nice, especially when there's a nice campfire going. And yeah, camp chairs, pretty critical for us. The third thing we really enjoy is a large tent. You saw us take the My Trail pyramid tent. That tent has a nest insert, so we were there during bug season. The mosquitoes were pretty bad. It was really nice to be out of the mosquitoes. Now, me personally, I can do without an inner tent for most buggy conditions, but when you're sitting in the tent playing cards, hanging out, relaxing, it's kind of nice to be completely free of biting insects. The other thing with the big tent is it allows us to bring all our stuff inside, spread out, and it gives us room to stand up, stretch, change our clothes, things like that. And it's kind of nice not being cramped in a little teeny ultralight tent. So there's our main luxuries. Number 7, what are the benefits of having break hikes where you hike separately but end at the same location? From J Sherman 51 via Instagram. I've done this with guys, like with I've done this with hiking partners who have not been my partner. I've done this with hiking partners who have not been my romantic partner before. And that seems to work out okay if that's part of your objective. Sometimes there's different skill levels and I say, okay, I'd like to do the high route. They'd like to stay on the trail. We'll meet you at this campsite. I've done that a number of times. It's very enjoyable. But when I go out backpacking with my wife, I kind of want to spend time with my wife as a couple. And part of the satisfaction for me is seeing her joy at experiencing nature. And I think part of the satisfaction for her as well is seeing my joy in experiencing the parts of nature that she might not see. And so that's a very fulfilling part of our relationship. Plus, it's really fun hanging out with your best friend. And I'm really fortunate. I know this isn't the case with all romantic relationships, but I'm really fortunate to be married to my best friend. And I like to spend time with her. So there's that. And finally, number 8, from the best backpacker via YouTube. Do you find that when you're backpacking with a romantic partner, you have more or less conflict than with a non-romantic hiking buddy? I have to think about the things that Stephanie and I have conflict with here in the front country, in the real world. It's finances. It's how we prioritize our time given our busy schedules and endless to-do lists. And it's dealing with difficult people outside of our relationship. All 3 of those things go away once you hit the trail. It's so cool. So when we have conflict in the backcountry, it's not really interpersonal conflict so much as it's being challenged by living in the wilderness. And the normal things are bad weather, so I'm cold and I'm wet. Or it's I'm hungry, or it's I'm really tired and we're still not at camp yet. And all those 3 things can manifest themselves with being short with each other and things like that. But it's not the same type of conflict that we experience out here. We go out into the wilderness to get away from the things that cause us conflict and stress here in the front country. So it's a completely different ballgame. And out there, any conflict we have is usually a result of something else, and it just doesn't last very long. It's really nice. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Go to backpackinglight.com. There's a companion article that goes with this video. It's linked down in the video description. Again, thanks for watching. Appreciate the questions, and we'll see you on the trail.